Okay, so it is 10 o'clock and people are still trickling in. So again, make sure you put your name, where you're from, and why you joined this session today. But I just want to say thank you all for joining today's webinar. So today is the Disability Employment Awareness Series, panel session 2, which will feature the employer panel. We had a really great session on Tuesday that featured self-advocates from across the state. And today we'll get to hear from some really great employers who work with people with disabilities. So my name is Morgan Bradley, and I am the Community Outreach Program Manager and Coordinator with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service in partnership with the Texas Council for Developmental Disabilities. I am joined today with my colleagues from across the state. I have Ms. Rosa Guel, she's the South Texas Regional Coordinator, Dr. Shelby Vaughn, the Central Texas Regional Coordinator, Skylar Mueller, the West Texas Regional Coordinator, Andy Crocker, the Senior Extension Health Specialist, and Emily Wintermute, our Graduate Student Assistant. Many of my colleagues here are here to help with any technical assistance. So if you have any issues, be sure to put that in the chat or message all panelists. And just the FYI, if you put all panelists and attendees, everyone can see your comment. But if you only put all panelists, only the panelists can see. So make sure you're putting all panelists and attendees. All right, so before we get started today, I'll go through an overview of how this session will go. I'll go through a few Zoom tips and assistance. I'll go through our agency overviews, ways that you all can connect with us, a few announcements, and then the way this panel session will go, we'll have about 50 to 60 minutes to hear from our panelists today, and then we'll have about 20 minutes for Q&A, and then we will close. So during the session, all attendees' cameras and microphones are off. However, to communicate with panelists or ask questions, you can drop information in the chat box, and that's how we'll be able to see that info. Okay. Oh no, something just happened to the script. Okay, so and another thing going on with the Zoom tips, there is a section for the transcription. You should see it on your screen. And we have people providing closed captioning services. All right, just one moment. Okay, here we go. All right, so the Texas Council for Developmental Disabilities, or TCDD, is a statewide governor-appointed board that is the only entity in state government solely focused on the needs and interests of individuals with developmental disabilities and their families. TCDD is mandated to provide input on state policy initiatives, build communities through statewide grant projects, and educate and inform the public and leaders on developmental disability issues. Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service is the outreach and community education arm of the Texas A&M system. For its more than 100-year history, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension has worked to help Texans better their lives with practical, applicable learning through a statewide network and a presence in all 254 counties and the campuses of Texas A&M University and Prairie View A&M University. When we're done here today, I'm glad to follow up with you to talk more about both agencies and how they work to serve the people of Texas. And so in 2019, TCDD partnered with AgriLife Extension to create a regional connection of regional coordinators with a mission to help Texans with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So there are regional coordinators throughout the state that you can connect with, and a link to connect with the regional coordinators has recently been dropped in the chat. Okay, and then join with me today co-moderating this event is the South Texas Regional Coordinator, Ms. Rosa Guel. Rosa Guel has been working closely on the topic of disability employment awareness with our community partners of the Rio Grande Valley. After participating in several disability employment related events throughout the year and attending employment coalition meetings, Rosa launched the Disability Employment Awareness Series that did feature self-advocates panels on this past Tuesday and then the panel session today. And so we will also continue this series with some educational series this summer, and I'll provide more information about that towards the end. And so Rosa will introduce each of the panelists, but give us just a quick not even 30 seconds, 15 seconds to make sure we have our technical stuff situated. Just 1 second. Okay. Rosa, are you good to go? Or I can start and then you can pick up, okay. So first we have Ms. Chevella Layne. Chevella has been the Director of Mission Services at Goodwill Industries of East Texas for the last 6 years. She arrived in Tyler, Texas in 2014 as the Program Manager and was later promoted as the Director of Mission Services. She worked at Goodwill Industries of Kiowa in Huntington, West Virginia for 6 years as a counselor, serving victims of crime, ages 3 to adult, couples, and individuals. As a counselor, she worked with court representatives, guardian ad litem, prosecutors, and judges, advocating and testifying on behalf of victims. Her career also provided experience in diverse arenas, including the foster care system, mental health, legal aid, and community recreation. Ms. Layne has facilitated classes for anger management, parenting, workplace training for staff, and more. She was introduced to Goodwill through an internship for a master's degree and never walked away. She fell in love with the mission. She holds a master's degree in community counseling with a certificate in family, marriage, couples counseling, a certificate in domestic violence from Marshall University Graduate School, a bachelor's of social work degree from Jackson State University, and an associate's degree in sociology and social welfare from Hines Community College. She earned her certification as a community health worker from the Texas Department of State Health Services. Chevella also holds the following certifications from UNT WISE, including Director, Job Placement, Job Skills Training, and a Certificate of Achievement in Certified Business Technical Assistance Consultant. So thank you, Ms. Layne, for joining us today.
I can go ahead and do the rest, Morgan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, the next panelists we want to introduce are Brad and Karen Thompson. Brad and Karen are the founders of the HALI Project, a nonprofit organization that provides counseling and education services for families who have children with special needs. He is also the director of counseling services at Turn Center, a nonprofit pediatric therapy center in Amarillo, Texas. Their passion is to help couples who have children with special needs find the hope, peace, and joy that God has for them, even in the midst of the storms that come their way. Brad and Karen have been married for nearly 35 years and have 2 children, Justin, 33, and Haley, 31. Haley deals with the challenges of multiple special needs, both physical and cognitive, and is the inspiration for their work. Justin is married to Monica and they have 2 children, Ella and Weston. Brad and Karen have been working with families since 1989 and since 2009 have been offering marriage weekend retreats specifically designed for couples who have children with special needs. Brad has a master's degree in counseling from West Texas A&M University and is a licensed professional counselor and supervisor. Karen completed all her classroom work for a master's degree in psychology and says that raising HALI and working with Brad should count as her thesis. Next panelist is Elizabeth Kendall. Elizabeth has been in the field of disability employment for the past decade, working with a variety of organizations, as well as the vocational rehabilitation counselor for the Texas Workforce Commission. She joined HEB in 2017 and leads the Disability Bridges team company-wide to hire and support people with disabilities at HEB. And our next panelist is Heather Choate. Ms. Choate is the co-owner of the Dual After School Program, DASP, in Bryan, Texas. The program is designed for families with children pre-K through 6th grade that focuses on educational enrichment and development for both English speakers and Spanish speakers in a fun, safe, and spacious environment for children pre-K through 6. DASP assists and focuses on homework completion as well as language development in both English and Spanish. Heather is a graduate of Sam Houston State University, and she is proficient in English and manages all administrative operations in her program. Thank you, panelists, for being here, and we look forward to learning more about your hiring practices and support for individuals with disabilities. Ms. Bradley and I will be taking turns in asking questions to our speakers today. So we'll be moving on to our questions, and we'll be starting with Ms. Chevella. Ms. Chevella, Ms. Layne, could you tell us about your current role and the company that you work with, and why is it important to recruit and hire people with disabilities?
My current role is Director of Mission Services, and I'm working for Goodwill Industries of East Texas. And one thing I can say about Goodwill, we are known for working with individuals that have disabilities or barriers to employment. So within Goodwill, I'm over the Mission Services team. So within our team, we have employment specialists. We also have job skill coaches. We have like Good Temp service, and we're working with a company where with the temporary jobs, they're geared more toward individuals. They're looking for individuals that have disabilities to put in these competitive jobs. We've hired attorneys. We have groups that are working for the child support office. And even beyond that, the work that we do in mission services extends beyond just working with individuals to get them placed in the community. We also work within the company. If an individual comes in with a barrier or a disability, let's see how we can better serve this individual with accommodations and different things like that, because it's about keeping a person employed, not just putting them into employment. So we will also put them into employment in the community. And one of the things that the employers will say is, well, what if the job changes? Can we still get needed help? Oh, yes, just call us and we will help you and come back and retrain and do what we need to do, because the goal is to keep them employed, not to just say that we have a placement or we place somebody. We want them to be successful in the position that they're in, whether they're in Goodwill or the community. So it is very important when we're saying we're an equal opportunity and we're including everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Layne. It sounds like you're doing a really, really good job there in your inclusion. How about you, Brad? Can you tell us about your current role and company and why it's important to recruit and hire people with disabilities?
Sure. I would just start with the fact that people with disabilities have skills and they have talents and they add value to the companies that they work for. And one of the things that we've discovered, found to be true over the past 20 years is that whether it's a physical disability or cognitive disability, almost every employer has a job in their setting that a person with a disability can do well, and bring value to the company. And not just the value of the bottom line, but the value to the environment of the company. When it's just inclusion, right? And when we include people who look different than us, think different than us, they bring a different perspective that allows us to expand our thinking. And when we do that, we all get to grow, right? Some of y'all listened to HALI talk a little bit, my daughter, on Tuesday. And I'll just tell you that she brings a different perspective to the environment she works in, regardless of where it is. And she loves what she gets to do. I spend a little time in the employment side with an inclusive community project that we started with the Turn Center and HALI Project and West Texas A&M and Texas Workforce Commission and on, a bunch of, we call them the volunteer group of the coalition of the willing, we call them, that just has a vision for how we can make our community in the Panhandle of Texas more inclusive to adults with special needs. And the reason that's so important to me is because in my work with families who have younger children, a lot of times when we're working with families of younger children, we're working with people whose original dreams for their kids have died. You know, we hear things like they're not going to go to college, they're not going to leave home, they're not going to get married, they're not going to do all the things that in a generic sense as parents we all dream for them. And then when we find out they have intellectual delays or any of those things, whatever the current politically correct term is, then those dreams kind of get they get destroyed a little bit. And how do you dream new dreams? Well, I want to be able to paint the picture for our families of younger kids as those dreams are being challenged and threatened, that while some of the things we imagined for our kids in adulthood may not happen, the world is still a big place full of opportunities, almost regardless of what your challenges are. And when we place more and more people in more diverse work settings in our community, the easier it is for me to tell the story that your child's work will be based on their strengths, talents, abilities, their social skills, their ability to get along with people, far more than it will be based on what their challenges are. When we get to paint that picture, then we get to inspire them to work really hard and push to see what their kids' potential is. And so that for me is why it's so important for us to recruit, hire people with disabilities.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. That's something that we're hoping to gain here with this employment awareness. You know, we need to start our children at a young age and, you know, get them working towards that goal, you know, of becoming, you know, independent and employed and moving forward in their future. Thank you for that. Ms. Elizabeth, the same question about your, what is your current role with the company and why is it important to recruit and hire people with disabilities?
You're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosa and Morgan, for making all this happen. HEB created Disability Bridges about in the last, I would say 4-ish years. We really became a thing about 3 years ago. And the reason that HEB has prioritized disability hiring is a business strategy. So it is the right thing to do. We all know that. And HEB does a lot of those kinds of things for the community and a lot of charity work. I'm adamant that our disability hiring is not part of that model. We have it as a sustainable business strategy because the reality is that there is a talent pool of lots of folks with disabilities, especially in Texas, that are more or less untapped, right? For a variety of reasons. They have a barrier to employment. I have learned that a lot of those barriers are on the employer side, and there are things that we can do as an employer, especially a large employer, to break those down. And so while we look at the competitive landscape for talent, right, from a business talent acquisition perspective, there's some great talent out there that we're not tapping into. And so my work has been around how do we break down those barriers, first to let people with disabilities know that this is what we're doing, come to us, and also to make the process, like the actual process for looking for a job at HEB, applying for a job at HEB, interviewing, onboarding, training, right? Getting a job. And then I love the focus on retention, not just getting the job, but keeping the job and growing with HEB. Because we like to grow our people at HEB in Texas. And so growing them and no limits for that. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you. I like that. No limits. That's awesome. Next, we have, we're going to ask the same question to Heather, but Heather's joining us on her phone. She's, I believe she's on the road, so but we're happy that she was able to join us. Heather, can you tell us about your current role and about your company and why it's important to recruit and hire people with disabilities?
Yes, of course. I am one of the co-owners of Dual After School Program, which is an after school and summer program from children ages pre-K through age 12. And this last semester, we had an exciting opportunity to partner with a PAS program within Texas A&M to gain an intern. And that was a very positive experience. And this is the first time that we've actually had any interaction with disability of any sort. The children that we serve so far have not had any disabilities, but we really wanted to embrace this opportunity because we strongly believe that a disability does not mean that you are disabled. And so many people that have a disability have, like everyone on the panel have said, have so many talents, have so many skills, and do have a lot to give despite what their disability may be. And so we had an amazing opportunity. Our intern was awesome. And our goal and our purpose as an employer is to help set people with disabilities up for success, not to label them that because they have a disability that they cannot or will not or are not able to, because they clearly are very able. And so we want them to have a sense of ownership in their position. We want them to have a sense of confidence on what they have to offer. We want to offer them a sense of independency so they can operate in the community as an independent individual that has a disability. Our experience was really awesome. We fell in love with our intern, and it has just really opened our eyes and our doors to accepting more people that have a disability, but they are not limited on what they can offer to our community. So we were excited to be able to be a part of that opportunity and look forward to continuing that.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you all. I think a really big takeaway for this first question was sustainability and retention of really great candidates. So I think that carries right into our next question, which is, how does your company attract and hire candidates with disabilities who may be a good fit for your employment needs? And so just what are some good recruitment best practices? So Ms. Layne, we'll start off with you, especially since you talked a lot about not only do y'all help hire people to work at Goodwill, but y'all help with job placement as well. So what are some of those recruitment best practices?
Well, since I don't work in HR, but because of the things that we do over here, and one thing that I can say about Goodwill is that the Mission Service Department has a good relationship with every other department that exists within Goodwill. So with that opportunity, working with HR, if they need to call upon us, if an individual needs assistance with like in orientation, or they are providing all the accommodations that they need to provide with advertisement. I looked at some of the questions and I was trying to look at, okay, how do I come about this way? Because that's what Goodwill has been known for a long time, of placing individuals into employment with disabilities. But with the advertisement piece, we definitely want to make sure that we are presenting an open, friendly part to say disability or no disability, you're able to apply for whatever positions that we have. We have individuals that are employed. We may not even know they have a disability until they reveal it later on, because there's some accommodations that need to be done. So I guess the best practice is to make sure that we are trained. We know that we're capable with advertisement, with some of the jobs, especially with some of our temp jobs. We may have at the ending piece, individual with disabilities are encouraged to apply. We work with Texas Workforce, so we get referrals from different agencies that we work with, blind services, different agencies that we have built a partnership with, and they know what we do at Goodwill, so they know we're able to help with the placement piece. And it's not about getting somebody placed or saying, hey, we can help. It's about making sure that it's not a rush thing. When we're advertising, when we're saying we're placing or Goodwill is advertising, we want to make sure that everybody understands anybody can apply. And then once you get to the organization, and we had an individual that when we had orientation, his mother came to orientation because she wanted to learn more about the organization. Not only learn about the organization, she wanted to also educate us on different ways to work with her son. And I thought that was great, because you are educating what we may not have known, we now know. This is going toward an individual. It's not a cookie cutting part thing. Everybody does not fit in the same box. We do work assessments. So it's what's the capability? And then how can we help you be successful in the position that you're trying to get, or the position that you're in? So when Goodwill advertise, they advertise for anyone to apply. Like I said, we may add on there anyone with a disability, but we also have that partnership in the community where people send us individuals that need help with employment.
Thank you for that. You made several good points. Marketing and advertisement is key, and I'm sure Elizabeth in her response will talk about this, but the goal is just any employer, you should be known for a disability or not, we can definitely hire you. So yeah, thank you for your response. We talked a lot last Tuesday on self-advocates' comfortability of applying. So how confident were they with applying? So Brad, I'll ask you next about what are some of y'all's recruitment best practices with working with employees or candidates with disabilities.
Sure. So we like to work on all sides of this. That because just like every other college graduate, high school graduate, program graduate, we're all looking to work in our strengths and minimize our weaknesses, right? There's a reason I'm a counselor and not a CPA, and that's because I can't do math, all right? We all have weaknesses. None of us can do everything. And it's important for us to recognize that. It's also important for us to recognize where our weaknesses might affect our ability to do the things that we do well, and talk about them and address them in training programs. And so as we work in the community to create work opportunities for people with disabilities, we're talking to, if they still live with their parents, we're talking to their parents about how they navigate things. We talk about their social skills, because what we find is that the people we work with are more likely to lose their jobs because of poor social skills than they are because of work competence. And so we really have to develop those things. We also want to work on the employment side, right? There are lots of folks who are running kind of what we would call mom and pop businesses who would be happy to hire a person with a disability, but they're afraid to. And what they're afraid of is basically what they don't know. They don't want to do anything that would harm this person physically, emotionally, relationally, any of those things. And because they're not sure of those things or how to deal with those things, they kind of take a hands-off approach. So what we're trying to do in our program is invite employers to the table and just ask them the questions. What are the jobs that you have available? We're inviting students and parents and individuals with disabilities to the table and asking, what are the things that you love to do? And then we're trying to bring these groups of people together so that the employee gets to choose between jobs that they would love to do, not just jobs that are available. That makes a ton of difference, right? If you wake up every morning loving the job that you're going to, the likelihood of you going and doing a good job are much better than if you wake up dreading, oh gosh, here I got to go to another job today. And on the other side, if we're providing the supports for the employer so that they just get to help them learn their job, then they become much more relaxed in bringing somebody on that may have a disability. And so by doing that in community, we are able to create more opportunities for people with disabilities to just participate in the community. And we think that's that inclusive approach of everyone brings everyone to the table, and it uses everyone's expertise. We're tapping into our Panhandle Regional Planning Commission. We're tapping into Texas Workforce Commission. We're tapping into DARS. We're tapping into West Texas A&M. All of those systems to bring together their piece of expertise to create a better training arena that really prepares our folks with disabilities to just to fully engage and offer their gift in the community. I'll stop talking.
No, you're fine. You're dropping a lot of knowledge. Thank you for that, Brad. I think you and Ms. Layne definitely made some great points about this takes a team effort to get the job done. My favorite quote from you so far is, we're looking to work in our strengths and not in our weaknesses. So really good points. And then we'll go on to you, Elizabeth. What are some of y'all's recruitment best practices, especially working directly with the Disability Bridges program?
Yeah, so just to echo what's been said, it's all about the partnerships. So many of you listening, and Brad and Chevella, I mean, and Heather, we 100% rely on our partnerships to bring us the talent. I know I'm speaking from a very recruiting perspective, but that's the reality, is that we rely on people who are working closely with these job seekers to be the experts on the skills that they have. And so a lot of our efforts with Disability Bridges has been equipping these counselors and teachers and even parents and service providers and a lot of schools on what makes a good HEB employee. what are we looking for? What kind of skills, what kind of environment are each of the jobs going to have? A lot of people don't realize. They say, oh, I want to do curbside. Okay, great. But curbside means a lot of times you start a shift around 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. And that is a big determining factor for anyone. And so it's good to know these things. So a lot of our work is equipping, just to reiterate, equipping our partners with the knowledge about HEB jobs so that they can help make a good determination and then send us candidates.
And I'm sure we've all heard the line, it's not just what you know, but who you know. And so having those connections is definitely important. So continuing this conversation about partnerships, Heather works closely with Aggie Achieve, and Aggie's Achieve is a 4-year program at Texas A&M University specifically for people with disabilities, and they help with job placement for the students while they are students at A&M. So Heather, could you talk a little bit about y'all's process with recruitment? Y'all have already had one intern. Are y'all looking to get more? And what has that process been like for y'all?
Yes, so this past semester was our first opportunity to be able to partner with this program. And like I said, it's been an amazing partnership, and we were excited that they reached out to us to offer this opportunity. And so it's still kind of brand new, and especially just coming kind of on the tail end of COVID. So right now we just partner with this program, and they call us and say, hey, we have these interns, how many can you accept? And so we are just working closely together on what we can help accommodate and what their needs are as far as placing interns. And specifically, obviously, we have an after-school care and summer program. So the interns that we receive are specifically interested in either childcare or the school industry or some type of childcare industry interest for them. So we want to prepare them for if they end up staying with us and be an employee of our after school care program, or if they move on to be a paraprofessional in any of the local ISDs, or if they go on to work for, another childcare facility. So our focus is to prepare them for the childcare industry.
Thank you. And we'll talk about this idea of job growth in a second too. So thanks for bringing that up, Heather. All right, Rosa, we'll go on with the next question.
Okay, Ms. Layne, I know you kind of touched a little bit on the previous question, but can you expand a little bit more on your onboarding experience once you employ the individual onto the workplace? And does your company also include any inclusive training for all the employees that work with Goodwill?
Okay, so if we're in-house and once they have boarded onto within Goodwill, then we will continue to work with that individual. And let me say this, when it comes, it's not always that a person wants to be pinpointed out. We may know the disability is there, but they may want to be more blended in with their co-workers, the accommodations that they need, we will make accommodations. If it comes to where some things are happening, which may be due to the disability, then that's when Mission Services can step in. And we can give the training. We can give the training to the managers. But we never tell a person you have to disclose your disability unless they desire to disclose that disability. I may have a disability. If I say I have a disability, I still have the right to say what my disability is or is not. I may not want everybody to know about my disability, even though it may be something I could visually see. I still may not want to verbally say it out loud. So how can we create the safe space? How can we create the onboarding for you to be included like everyone else, and still give you what you need? So every situation is a case-by-case situation to let us help you the best way that we can, because we want you to be successful. So in the community, and that was one thing I wanted to mention, when it comes to working with individuals that we're placing in the community, you know, they have a plan. They tell us their desired or dream job that they would love to have. There's a reality with everything. There's certain things people may be able to do and certain things people may not be able to do. And I think I heard Brad say something that kind of referred to that. I may want to fly a plane, but I don't have that experience to just say, hey, I think I want to fly everybody today. And that is just not my skill. So when we're out in the community, sometimes the employment specialist will carve out a job. And you say, how do they do that when you're working with employers? We can go do observation. We can go look at the job that the person is desiring to be in. We can talk to the employer. You may not even notice that we're there, but we're looking at the function, how you're functioning and what's going on, and then approach the manager and say, hey, wouldn't it be easier if you had a person to do this position? And they'd be like, oh, I never even thought about that. That's a great idea. So we just carved out a job. And by the way, we got somebody for you. We would love to bring them in for an interview. So it's opening up those doors for those opportunities and onboarding people. And education is a big thing. Training is a big thing. I can't expect staff to know what to do if staff isn't trained. So we have to be educated and trained. And what we don't know, that's why we have partners to still educate and teach us what we don't know or what we may not have the knowledge of, because I can't help you in the community. I can't help you in your job position. I can't help you with onboarding or any of that if I'm not educated on what the need is. So training is definitely a big thing with us.
Good.
Thank you for your response, Ms. Layne. Yes, and I mean, finding that, getting that training, and of course, you know, identifying those strengths and skills for the individual and trying to make those appropriate placements is, you know, is right on. But yes, training is the most important thing, because as you said, you know, we don't have the knowledge or we don't have the information, and so how do we prepare others in doing that job? So thank you for that. Brad, same question. What is the onboarding experience like in your company? And do you offer inclusive training for all employees that work in your program?
So the answer is complicated, but basically yes. Well, the reason it's complicated is because at the Turn Center, especially, we provide all the therapies, PT, OT, speech, and counseling for kiddos and families who have a disability or diagnosis of one form or another. And so we're well equipped to work with people who have disabilities, right? But most of the positions here require high levels of education. You can't just walk out of high school and come be a physical therapist, or an occupational therapist. And so many of those positions require an education that the HALIs of the world are not capable of getting, but there are support positions that are here that we can train them to do. And so we just take the person and train them. And rather than looking at abilities, I want us to look at abilities and disabilities, strengths and weaknesses, because every human has them. If you hired me to run the multi-million-dollar budget of the Turn Center, I would fail miserably because I don't have that strength. But if you put me in a position to work with families and encourage them and point them to a bright future, that's in my wheelhouse. Okay. And we just need to do that with everyone. And I know that's an overly simplistic answer, but if we'll just be honest as parents and family members of people with disabilities about the strengths and weaknesses, the limitations and the benefits of hiring us, we will find those places where we really benefit the organization. And that's what becomes so important. And then we train our staff to help them. So here, it's not HALI, the person with special needs. It's not Brendan, the person with special needs. It's HALI and Brendan who work at the Turn Center, and here's their job. And they just do their job. And because of that, they're a valuable part of the whole group. And when we can just inspire that, then we have that space where everybody gets to contribute their gift to the better bottom line. And in that, the training becomes inclusive, right? Because we're all working toward the same goal. And so our therapists learn how to communicate with Brendan and HALI in a way to get what they need out of them. And Brendan and HALI learn how to navigate our settings so that they're adding value to what our therapists are doing. And they're adding value to families as they're sitting in the lobby, because they're showing them that people with disabilities have bright futures for jobs that they love to go to every day. And I think all of those things are so important, that begin at the very beginning in the hiring and onboarding process of just a really honest conversation about what we do well and where we might struggle.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and, I'm sorry, having some technical difficulties here. We'll move on to Elizabeth. The same question on your onboarding experiences and inclusive training for all employees. Is that part of your training in your company?
Yeah, so a few things, and I know we're going to dive into specifically accommodations and training in just a little bit. We do have our regular hiring that I've been talking about, and Disability Bridges supports disability hiring for every job in HEB across the entire state. So whether it's someone applying to be a order selector in one of our warehouses, or someone's applying to be a bagger at one of our stores, or a deli manager at one of our stores, or in our corporate position as well. Most of our corporate positions are in San Antonio, but we have some in Austin and in other cities too. So most of what I've been talking about thus far is in support of that hiring. So not specific employment programs around disability hiring. So someone coming in isn't going to have a special disability job or part of a Disability Bridges program. However, we do have some of those. So some of the programs specifically for people with disabilities is our Neurodivergent digital internship program. That's actually happening right now. I have 5 interns over at our corporate office who are in college students who identify as being on the neurodivergent spectrum. And they are doing more technical work. Some is in our HR, technical HR systems. Some are in our systems that, are the back end for curbside and things in our website. And then another program specifically that we have is an internship that's starting actually this fall. We're going to pilot it for our stores. And this is a bagger internship for the students who have done some work experience training in our stores, volunteering, or at other retailers, and they're looking to make that jump to a part-time job. And so we're kind of bridging that gap, if you will, with an internship, an 8-week internship over in the fall once school starts back up. And if that internship goes well, they'll apply for and have the opportunity to roll into a permanent part-time bagger position, and then can grow their career from HEB. And so we with those specific programs, we do extensive training and preparation for everyone involved. So those store sites that have been selected for the internship, we've gone to each of the top store managers and worked all the way down to the teams that they're going to be on to make sure that everyone has at least, basic disability education, knowledge, disability etiquette, things like that. And I think it was Brad who mentioned it before about fear, like not wanting to say the wrong thing, having the best intent, but not wanting to say the wrong thing. So nothing is said, and trying to really help people feel confident and equipped with, when to reach out and how to deal with certain scenarios that may arise or may not, honestly. And then like for our neurodivergent internship at our corporate office, again, we did some extensive training. We brought in autism experts who have autism themselves. So we had these autistic trainers come in and talk about varying aspects of neurodivergence in the workplace and what that, again, may or may not look like, because every person is their own. I would say one of the key components, and this is like my golden rule at HEB, we call our employees partners. So we say, treat these partners like you would any other partner, right? So a lot of partners these days are raising their hand and saying, hey, I need this extra support, accommodation, modification, alternative option. You think about COVID, you think about working from home, you think about childcare. Pretty much probably all of us can check one of those boxes. People with disabilities are the same. They may or may not have different accommodation requests or things that they need to be the best employee that they can be.
Thank you. Excellent response. How about you, Heather? What is the onboarding experience like in your company? And do you also include inclusive training for all of your employees?
So we, although we own our own after school care program, we are heavily regulated by child care regulations. So we have to adhere to their standards as well as implement how we want our business to be run as business owners. So yes, we are required for anyone that will be volunteering or will be an intern or will be an employee of our after school program to provide training, and there is a section on disability, but my heart is that I try my very hardest to treat everyone equally. I also try to be very open in communication with what the needs of my employee or employees are, whether they have a disability or do not have a disability. Because as the comments have been made already, that I want to place my employees where they feel confident in their ability to perform successfully. I don't want to place them with a task that they hate. Because that's not going to be good for them, and it's not going to be good for the students and the families that we serve, and it's not going to be good for me as a business owner. So I think it's very, very important that we understand how to communicate with any individually. I try to be very open, and I want them to feel comfortable if they want to share anything about their disability or not. I want to be respectful of what their boundaries are, but I also want to know how I can best accommodate what their needs are, regardless of their disability. So I try to be a chameleon as far as my communication style with my employees, because everybody has a different way of communicating. And it's my job as their employer to be able to understand their communication style and to be able to hear what they need and see what they need and to be able to best place them in the most successful position or task that we have available for them.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, thank you, panelists. This is obvious that all of you are obviously listening to your employees' needs and making the workplace a safe and wonderful workplace. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next question with Morgan.
Yes, so I think we all are segueing great into talking about accommodations. And so a lot of y'all have already covered quite a bit of that. So we'll just probably quickly go through this question. But what accommodations are available for employees with disabilities? And Ms. Layne, I want to start with you and ask also for those who are seeking job placement, is there any like computer or technology available for them as they are looking for positions? But yeah, what extra accommodations are available if disabilities are disclosed? What are y'all able to do?
If the disability is disclosed, then that's the wonderful thing about having the partnerships. We can call Texas Workforce and get individuals what they need, get them set up, help them with the process. We've had several individuals, even within Goodwill, that were in need. They were having issues of not being able to hear when people were communicating with them. We just called Texas Workforce, got them set up. They got hearing aids. Individuals that have some visual impairments, we call the blind services. They came in, they set up the equipment that needed to be, and it, like I said, it's a wonderful thing to have the different partnerships there, because we want to accommodate as much as we can to everybody to make their job as easy as we can for them. So we're going to take every step to do what we need for the accommodation piece of it, whether it's visual, whether it's hearing, or whatever is needed. And that is also, and this is whether they may not disclose to their manager. When we have orientation, every department comes in. So when mission services comes in and we tell them what we do in mission services, a lot of individuals will call us and say, hey, I need help with this. Can I get assistance with this? And if it's a cost that the company needs to cover, then we definitely would do protocol as far as sending them to HR and then letting HR take over from there to purchase the needed items that they need to help with their job, to be successful at their job. And that's whether we're in-house or out-house. Then we're going to follow that same thing with the accommodations, reaching out in the community to our partners or Goodwill, purchasing the needed items. Even we have a technology department. So that even helps with our Good Tech services to help us with those accommodations too, that are needed for individuals that are working for Goodwill or out in the community.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to know that for any employee, if they do need any type of accommodations, that those resources are available. All of the panelists have mentioned Texas Workforce at one point, and quite a few links have been dropped in the chat. And there are quite a few people present today from Texas Workforce. So if you ever need to reach out to them for assistance, that is a great place to go to. But thank you, Ms. Layne, for that. And Elizabeth, we'll go to you next about accommodations for people with disabilities. And then also, if you could talk about assistive technology and also maybe flexible work schedules, especially with like the pandemic and HEB, that was a very interesting time. So what all could you talk about for that?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest accommodations that I see are providing American Sign Language. We have a lot of deaf employees, so American Sign Language interpreters are big. And that is for an interview. So if someone's not even an employee yet and they request it for, excuse me, for the interview, or if they are hired on during the onboarding process, training process, or if they're a current employee and they're transitioning to a new job. And so training for that, or really any kind of communication that's needed. So it's at their discretion to request that. And the other one that we've seen, I would say like an increase of is job coaching. And so we work with a job coaching vendor to bring in a job coach, again, as needed, if that's needed during the interview process, if that's needed during the onboarding training process. We don't have any kind of supported employment, or what I would call a supported employment program in place where we have a job coach all the time. It's really just on the front end and to get people ramped up in the role to learn the job skills. Alongside that, a lot of employees bring in their own job coaches already. So whether they're working with someone with Texas Workforce or a private one, or through Goodwill or something, and that's great. We fully welcome that, but we recognize there were some gaps. Sometimes people didn't have that. Sometimes people didn't even know that that was an option. And that's where we're able to fill in the gap from an employer perspective. I would say one of my biggest learnings with technology is with us in the corporate offices working on Zoom pretty much all day. A few things. So obviously for employees who are deaf, providing that option for CART services. As you guys know, Zoom has auto transcription now, which is great. We also use other programs that have auto transcription. I learned that when you're presenting slides in PowerPoint has an option to turn on auto transcription on the slides, and that works really well. So a lot of different things like that. As well as working with some of our employees at the corporate office who are autistic and different concerns about transitioning back into the office and what that's going to be like, because I know that's like, a big concern globally is re-entry into the office. But you think about people who are hired during the pandemic who have never actually been in the office space. So working through some of those things have been interesting. I'll pass it on.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a lot of resources available, and I think those just make a difference, period, for each employee, just knowing that that's even available between assistive technology, ASL, job coaching, small changes when y'all are doing presentations, that all helps. So Brad, we'll take it to you. Have you guys did a lot for accommodations for people with disabilities? Have y'all shifted that a little bit as everyone was working remotely, flexible work schedules, things like that?
Working remotely for our folks with disabilities was just impossible, just given what we do. So that was there are some things you just can't accommodate for, right? And so that was a real downside. And so HALI and Brendan were both basically off work for about 10 weeks, and our board and our administration was so good to go ahead and just take care of them through that time. So that was the accommodation we had to make for them through the worst part of the pandemic before we opened back up. And when we opened back up with all of the restrictions that we had, of course, some of the things that they do, like cleaning materials and cleaning things, became even more important and valuable, and so that was a really big deal. One of the things we're blessed with at the Turn Center is we have 15 occupational therapists on staff, and so it's kind of built into their training and titles that they help people do the things and develop the skills to make them employable. And so we get to tap into that as we're hiring folks to just help them fine tune the skills that are needed for the job that they have. When it comes to assistive technology and flexibility, assistive technology wise, we just provide what's necessary for them to be successful. And then one of the things I think we don't talk a lot about in flexible scheduling is making sure that it fits with the other benefits that these guys receive. And so in the name of just wanting to do well and wanting to do well by our employees, people who don't understand things like eligibility requirements for Social Security and Medicaid and on and on and on, we could inadvertently disqualify some folks from some services that they absolutely need. And so being really careful in Brendan's situation that we don't have him work too much or pay him too much, and then it disqualifies him from Social Security or insurance, which his family needs him to have. Just understanding that I would love for him to work 40 hours a week, but it's better for him to work, let's just say 18, for his overall well-being, taking all of that into consideration. And the same is true for HALI, for that matter. Sorry, I have flies flying around my office. I don't know what that means, but I think really helping employers to understand all of those things just helps them to be successful when hiring our guys.
I think the fly swatting is an example of knocking down barriers. So great job, Brad. And thank you for that information. So we're gonna go to Heather next. So for your current intern you have and for future interns, could you talk a little bit about accommodations provided? I also want to make a note that all of our employers today have very hands-on job fields. So the option of working remotely always was not the case, because a lot of what they were doing was very crucial. They were needed at all times throughout this pandemic. So just an FYI on that.
Yes, so the internship program, our first intern we received in January. So at that time, we were still under COVID requirements and the guidance from the health department. So we just incorporated that into our daily activities. So it didn't really affect us having our intern on site. And as far as job coaching and technical support, the program that they are enrolled in through Texas A&M, that is their curriculum. They are preparing their interns to know how to use technology, to know how to be independent in the community. So a lot of that came from the program that they are enrolled in at Texas A&M. And then on our part, we would just reiterate what they were learning in class as it was applicable to the job tasks that we have at Dual After School program.
Awesome. Thanks, Heather. And then I do want to make a note, since we did talk a lot about accommodations and tech stuff. So one thing that AgriLife Extension, our coordinators offer is a training on an inclusive worksheet training that talks about those little pieces of how to make environments that much more inclusive. And then there's also a resource on a lot of different websites and software available to make things more inclusive. And that will be dropped in the chat shortly, but we'll also be able to provide that information for you later. We're approaching 11:10, so we're gonna go ahead and go into the Q&A. We have quite a lot of questions. Thank you all for trying to answer some questions in the chat, but the questions are still coming in. So I'm going to let Skylar go ahead and operate the Q&A, and she'll just read off some questions, and then panelists, as you feel the need to answer, you can, and we'll just do it like that until about 5 minutes till 11:30.
Thank you, Morgan. We'll start kind of up at the beginning. This one was for Miss Layne. Are the services that Goodwill offers or that were discussed available through all Goodwills, or are these services unique to East Texas?
With Goodwills, now we have a Goodwill International, which is the umbrella for all Goodwills, whether in Texas or another city. So most of the time we may have similar programs, but not always the same program. We're all unique to different programs. So it's always best to, whatever Goodwill you're looking at, to go on that particular Goodwill site and see the different programs that they offer, because we work together as Goodwill and we share a lot of things, but individually, we all have our different programs. Some may be exactly the same, just a different name, or that other Goodwill may not have the particular programs that I'm talking about. So.
Thank you. We have another question. What are some best practices for families and employees to check to make sure employment is not going to affect benefits? And that's open for any of the panelists.
I'm going to refer to the PABS resource that I think Ashley actually put in the chat. So thank you for that. There's some great resources. Disability Rights Texas. I believe PABS falls under Disability Rights Texas. And that's really, there's some great resources out there for families.
Thank you. Do any of the other panelists have suggestions?
I know with one of our employees, we just have a very open conversation about how many hours she needs so it doesn't affect the benefits that she is able to receive.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Open to any of the panelists. Can you talk about what your organizations do to ensure employees with disabilities earn competitive wages?
Well, we just pay them competitive wages. I mean, yeah, and because they're worth, their job is worthy of being paid. It's, I'm a big believer in individual dignity, and the people I work for are big believers in dignity. And so we're not hiring mascots. We're not doing them a favor. We're hiring people with skills to do real jobs that need to be done, and they should be compensated accordingly, and while keeping all the other things in consideration, because while paying them a competitive wage, we don't want to disqualify them from something else, but just understanding that. And that's what I want. I don't want somebody hiring a person with a disability feeling like they're doing them a favor. I want them to hire a person with a disability because it makes their business better, and therefore should be paid appropriately.
I missed the clapping reactions on regular Zoom webinars or Zoom meetings. So clap for you, Brad.
Yeah.
Any other panelists have a response to that?
Let me say this. One thing that our CEO did when she came here to Texas, you know, Goodwill at one time was known for paying piecework. So you get paid for the pieces that you completed or did in that process that particular day. So one of the things that our CEO did when she came, she did away with that. You're clocking in like everybody else. It's trying to make sure everybody is included. When you're working, you're clocking in the time clock just like all other employees, and not doing the piecework anymore. But and like Brad said, you also have to be aware. We have employees that even if the company is getting an increase in salary, that will send something to us privately or to HR and say, hey, I can't take that, because they do not want to lose their benefits. And we honor that, because we don't want them to lose what they worked so hard to get.
Right.
So
And what they deserve.
Yes. So we have to be very aware of that when it comes to that part in that process.
Yeah.
And it's truly an individual thing. And I'm not going to say what the Thompson family does is what everyone should do, but because HALI loves to go to work and it gives her purpose. There are some hours that she spends at both of her workplaces that are just volunteer. And everybody knows it and everybody's okay with it, because her going to work is good for her mental health. It's good for her parents' mental health as well. That's another subject. And it keeps everything in line. And so everybody's in agreement. Employer, HALI, Brad and Karen, everybody that's involved in a decision.
Thank you. This one is related to HEB and employment. Are there local points of contact for HEB stores regarding employment, specifically for individuals with disabilities? Do you have a link where these contacts could be found?
Yeah, thanks, Skylar. So the best way to get in touch with the Disability Bridges team is to email bridges@heb.com, and that's BRIDGES@heb.com. That will get you in touch with the whole Disability Bridges team. Thank you, Andy. So you probably won't have too much success walking into an HEB store and talking to a store manager about employment. And that's because we do all of our hiring now centralized, which means we have recruiters that will work with candidates and then send them to the stores. So it is not a good idea to walk into an HEB store and talk to a manager about employment anymore, especially for someone with a disability. The best bet is to email Bridges, and we have an official referral process that we can set you up with as a referral provider. And we don't guarantee interviews, we don't guarantee jobs, but we will do our darndest to advocate, to provide accommodations, to give, and this is a big one, is just giving the hiring managers a heads up. Hey, this person's going to have a job coach come with them. Hey, this person has an ASL interpreter coming with them. Bring an extra seat to the interview, have it set up properly, or this person, let us know that they have autism and they're not comfortable, shaking hands. They're not going to shake your hand, anything that the candidates want us to let the hiring managers know, we will. And that has been highly successful. It's like a kind of small thing to be done. That's been very successful.
Thank you. Next question. How do you empower employees to know that they can and should ask for necessary accommodations? Open to any panelist.
I think that's where the communication comes into play. I think it's very important to just be openly communicative about them telling us what their needs are, as well as us asking them what their needs are. so we can best accommodate them so they feel very comfortable in the position that they have wherever they're working. So it is our job as an employer to ask, not just once, maybe daily, very often, on what their needs are, if their needs are being met, and if there's anything else that we can do to give them what they need to accommodate them. And I don't think that we need to be afraid to ask, how can I accommodate you? I also ask that question to my employees that do not have disabilities. How can I accommodate you? How can I make your job easier or better? Is there anything that you need from me as your employer?
Thank you, Heather.
This just really speaks to me to the value of relationships,
Mhm.
that we can just have open communication, that the employer is asking the question, how can I help you be successful?
Mhm.
And if that includes accommodation, it does. And so we're just in relationship trying to help each other do better.
And I just want to say, and that's like the communication piece is so valuable. And that's one of the things of meeting everybody when we have the opportunity, when we're having orientation or going to visit the stores that we have, or even the individuals that are in employment in the community, making that constant contact, keeping that communication line open, so they feel comfortable in talking with us. And it's no different than, and like I said at the beginning, you may look at me and think, she may not have a disability, but you don't know if I have a disability or not. And it's not, if I see that there is a disability or I see that there's something there, we also encourage our managers to communicate with us. Something's a little bit different. They're not retaining, they're not, okay, that's where mission services come in. Let us go in and see what's happening or what's going on, because this may be an individual that decided, I don't want to reveal to you my disability, but if we can get them to open up to us and communicate with us, let us put into place what we need to put into place so they can be successful and still honor the wishes that they have when it comes to not disclosing that disability.
Thank you. Any other responses?
I'm going to just piggyback on what she said. I think too, it's our job as an employer to be visually aware and very present in our workplace, to be able to see even when our employees are not being verbal, if they choose to be nonverbal about their disability, or they choose to be nonverbal, or they just don't feel comfortable being verbal about what they need. It's our job to be aware, to observe, and to see and fill in the pieces where we see something that could help them better do their job, where they're not able to either see it themselves or to verbalize it to us. So I think being very aware and very present as an employer is an important piece as well.
Great answers. This one is about potential funding available for individuals with disabilities wanting to start a business, or even how they could get assistance with getting contracts. So do any of y'all know of funding or grants available for individuals with disabilities wanting to start a business? And do you know of any programs or businesses that would assist the individual with getting contracts? For example, in Texas, do disability-owned businesses qualify as hub vendors?
I'm waiting for our Texas Workforce Commission to put something in the chat because they're really the experts on it. Oh yeah, there's Aubrey. putting something for TWC, I would say that the TWC website has that information.
And I'll just say that's probably something that we'll cover when we have our TWC, TWS reps talk this summer, but definitely a very good question.
Okay, I will move on to the next question. And Elizabeth provided a resource for this already. If any of the other panelists know of any, please chime in. Is there an online resource where employers can get information on how to offer modifications, adaptations for employees with disabilities?
Yeah, and just to reiterate what I had typed in chat, the Ask Jan website, ASKJAN, is really the top one for employers, but also our local Texas Workforce Commission has some resources on their website too.
Thank you.
I want to bring up a point that's in the back of my head, kind of not related, but as far as disability disclosure, I've seen some chats about that. Typically it's been like, don't disclose a disability, right? But if an employer has a specific program to hire people with disabilities and they're publicly out there with that program, such as like a HEB Disability Bridges program, it will definitely be in their best interest to disclose that disability so that they the proper channels that we have set up for accommodations and support as needed, or nothing may be needed, and that's fine, but at least it's there if they need it. So I would say do the research on the employer, see if they have any programs or things happening as far as disability inclusion, and that will determine whether to disclose or not disclose.
Thank you. And I'll move on to another one. Do any of you have examples of some creative hires, modifications, or jobs that happened because of creativity? Perhaps a company that had an aha moment and realized this is something I can hire someone to do, or a task that someone modified so it could be done by someone with a disability. So any specific examples you may have of this?
Well, I would just start, of course, it's always personal, right? HALI was first hired at the Turn Center basically to be a greeter in the lobby. And the whole purpose was for parents and grandparents and caretakers who are bringing young kiddos with disabilities for services, to see that adults with disabilities can live full lives that they love. And just the idea that, yeah, there's an adult that can greet them in the lobby, a Brad or anybody else. But when HALI does that, they see a glimpse of what could be in their future for their kids too. And if not that, something else. But that came from our executive director that just said, we're trying to get people to dream for their kids with disabilities. And well, how are we going to show them that it's even reasonable or possible? And so on any given day, you'll see Brendan or HALI buzzing around the lobby, just talking to parents.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're getting really close to our cutoff time. So thank you all for being present today. We have a few last announcements and information to provide, but I do want to say thank you to each of the panelists. Your time spent today is definitely appreciated, and the resources shared, information shared. A lot of this was novel information for a lot of people. I also want to thank all of the participants. Thank you all for being chatty in the chat box and dropping all of those resources and information. This is what it's all about. How can we communicate all of this information to our communities? And just know that the chat will be saved, the recording is saved, and all of this information will be provided for all attendees post-event. So do not worry, it will all be uploaded, and I will have that for you guys. So I just want to go through quickly a few upcoming events. So the first one is the next Disability Policy Academy, which is hosted by the Texas Council for Developmental Disabilities. And this one is called A Capital Recap, Disability Policy in the 87th Texas Legislature. So I just want y'all to be informed that this will happen on July 15th. And if you click on the link provided, you can see more information when registration becomes available. The Disability Policy Academies are great, and they really give you those great summary information of what has been happening during this session. The next event will happen, well, that has already happened. So this spring, TCDD asked people with disabilities and their families about how the COVID pandemic was impacting their lives 1 year after the initial shutdown. So for example, 69% of survey respondents stated concern that healthcare for people with disabilities may not be a priority in certain medical settings. So this was the third survey released from TCDD COVID surveys, and you can read more about the responses and compare information to the previous surveys on the TCDD website. And that link was just dropped as well. And then this was the second panel of the Disability Employment Awareness Series. And I just want to say thank you to y'all for joining today and to those of you who joined last Tuesday as well. And this summer, we will continue this series by launching 3 educational events. And those will cover the topics of developing soft skills in the workplace, vocational rehabilitation services, as well as family supports and roles for the job search. So we'll have different representatives across the state to be a part of that, to continue to provide this really vital information for seeking employment. So for more information on that, you can click on that link, and we will have registration and stuff posted pretty soon. So you'll have more info on that soon. All right, and then lastly, I will let Rosa cover this upcoming event.
Yes, we want to announce that the Disability Chamber of Commerce in Rio Grande Valley will be hosting the second of a 3-part employer webinar series that is tentatively set for July 8th, 2021. And then the third part of the webinar series is scheduled for August 26th, 2021 on disability fundamentals for employers, which will help employers learn about disability awareness, etiquette, disclosures, and accommodations. Please stay tuned to the DCC-RGV on Instagram and Facebook, or via website www.dccrgv.org for further details. And this is they're leading these webinar series to their employer conference that is scheduled for October, the first week or second week of October. And of course, some of those details are still pending. So please just stay tuned to Instagram and Facebook and their website.
And lastly, evaluation is definitely a key component of extension programming. So we would appreciate you all completing an evaluation link that will be dropped in the chat and also provided to everyone in our emails post-event. So definitely do us a favor and complete those evaluations. And then if you need to contact myself or Rosa, you can email us, and our emails were dropped in the chat as well. And that is all. And you can also connect with your regional coordinator in the link as well. Thank you all so much for joining, for sharing information, and being a part of this very important conversation. And we hope that we'll be able to stay connected and continue to provide information for our communities that we serve. So thank you, everyone. And I hope y'all have a wonderful what's today? Thursday. Have a good weekend. Have a good weekend. I was not trying to take everybody backwards in time. has been a week. Thank y'all so much for coming. All right. Have a good weekend, everyone.